Right, so what I thought I would do is, I guess, illustrate a lot of the things that John was talking about in terms of company, and some of these things we have in place, some of the things he's talked about we've had in place, and some of those things we don't have in place and we're building towards. But this will give you kind of, I guess, a snapshot of where Mesynthes is at and the opportunity that we're targeting and the way that we're developing the company. So it's pretty high level, but it will certainly give you the bare bones of what's going on. So I'll just get myself sorted out here. So what we're about is really unlocking the power of regenerative healing. So you may know that there's some major changes that are happening in healthcare, and one of the key changes in healthcare is the emergence of this field called regenerative medicine. And if you look back over the last 50 years, there's been 3 pillars of healthcare, and that's been pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and medical devices. And there's a 4th pillar of healthcare that's emerging called regenerative medicine. And the idea behind this is that for many chronic diseases, you may be able to get past this paradigm of having to have continual treatment. So it may be that you can switch some things around inside the body and actually encourage the body to heal itself. And there's a lot of work being done in this field, and it relates to a whole lot of chronic conditions where I think you'll see that over the next 20 years, some of the conditions that we thought that people would be stuck with for the rest of their lives may actually be able to be significantly improved through regenerative medicine. So the thing that we're working on is how cells interact with the environment around them. So what's become really well understood over the last 10 years is that cells have this ongoing interaction with the matrix that sits around them, and it's not simply a structural framework, it's a framework that contains a lot of signals and a lot of substrates that actually influence those cells. So we're very interested in how we can affect cells by the environment that sits around them. So what we've done is essentially take an animal tissue and decellularize it so that we remove the antigenic components, so the components that would make the body react against it, but conserve within that framework some of the important signaling components that actually influence those cells. So we have a tissue that's essentially it's a biomaterial that can be fabricated into quite a wide range of devices. And the way we've thought about developing this technology is to start with something that was very simple and then progress towards making increasingly complex devices for some specific niche applications, and along the way building the value of the technology platform and the types of opportunities that we can address. So this is a picture of a microscopic image of cells within our material, and this has been seeded with cells. The cells have then migrated into the material, and they are inhabiting that material and turning over the material and replacing it with their own native matrix. So what happens over time is that this material is completely replaced by the patient's own tissue. So if you think about where you could use this type of technology, there's a wide range of uses today for this technology, but there's a whole range of uses that are emerging. So often this type of technology is used essentially to patch holes in people. So you have a soft tissue deficit or an injury. A surgeon can often, if the hole's too big, they need to be able to plug that hole with something. So this provides a out of the packet material that can be used to patch that hole, and then over time it's completely replaced by the patient's own tissue. So there's a wide range of applications that we can target for this technology today. So if you think about the market dynamics, this is a market just in the US that already exceeds $1 billion. It's growing at double-digit rates, and I think as these types of technologies start to be combined with cells, then we'll see this really take off. So the areas that we're particularly interested in at the moment are chronic wounds, and that's our first application. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Repairing soft tissue abdominal wall injuries or where weakness happens in abdominal walls. And then also looking at tumour resections and repairing tissue where tissue has been resected and the surgeon needs to then somehow be able to patch up that hole. And breast reconstruction is a classic for that. So the challenges that physicians face, or surgeons face in these types of applications is one thing that's really important with how these materials perform is the rate at which blood vessels grow into it, because it has a huge impact on healing, the rate of healing, the quality of healing, the propensity for that material to become infected, and also how well that material's repaired so that, or how well that material repairs so that the implant doesn't actually fail. What also concerns surgeons is the fate of the tissue. So it's really important that the tissue is completely turned over and that native tissue replaces the device. If that doesn't happen, what you can find is that the material, the body starts to react against the material and you get this chronic inflammatory response. These sites are often either contaminated or infected, so surgeons have a real concern when they're using implantable products that the material isn't prone to infection or doesn't harbour bugs, so that later on, over a long period of time, you start to have these problems with biofilms. And the other thing is strength over time. So when you implant a material like this, it's actually quite strong to start with, but as it goes through this process of being remodeled, then it weakens and then strengthens up again. So the rate at which that strength declines and then it strengthens again is very important as well. And you can see a clinical issue that emerges with this, whereby this is a patient with a hernia, has that hernia repaired, looks fantastic when he goes home. When he comes back in 3 months' time, the problem's back again because the implant's broken down. So what's different about our material, and something that we've focused on very, very carefully, is being able to get the level of purity that we need so that the body doesn't reject it, but to be able to retain as much of the biological complexity of the extracellular matrix so that it has bioactive properties. So we've focused very heavily on retaining those biological components, and if you compare that to many of the products that are on the market at the moment, essentially they see the collagen matrix as essentially a framework and have washed out many of the biological components that sit within the ECM. The other thing they can do is often use very harsh processes, and those harsh processes affect the structure of the framework, and if that structure's changed, the biological function of that framework changes as well, and it actually loses a lot of its bioactivity. So what we've shown with our material is that you can do a range of different experiments where you probe the biological activity of the material, and we've shown in a whole range of biological assays and in vivo studies as well that this material is bioactive, and it actually causes cells to differentiate and proliferate. We've run a whole series of experiments looking at the angiogenic properties of these materials. So collagen-based materials are known to have angiogenic properties. What we've been able to show is that the Endoform material has quantitatively superior angiogenic properties compared to the leading products on the market in the US, and by quite a considerable amount. So that's a really compelling thing for surgeons. It makes the material very, very attractive. We've done that in animal models, and we've also seen that when we've gone into the clinic, we've seen very similar results. We've shown in a whole range of studies that the material is completely remodeled as well. So it actually does disappear, and you get this very nice healing with very little scarring. It's stronger compared to some of the leading products in the US, significantly stronger, and it has a very good what's called an MMP inhibition profile. So this is most important in chronic wounds, because these MMPs can actually delay healing. So we've run a whole bunch of clinical studies on these, done some in New Zealand, done some in the US. We have a study happening now in the US. The results from these have been really encouraging and have certainly helped us secure a major company in the US as a partner for our wound care product. So this is our first product, endoform dermal template. It's been approved by the US FDA and it's very close to being launched in the US. We have, as I said before, we have a partner in place for this. We are just working through the final arrangements in terms of reimbursement, so that's how we get paid by the hospitals. We expect to launch that in the US this year. It's also likely to be picked up by the same company to sell this globally. This is our second product. So this is essentially the same format, but a laminated version of this product. That's a product that allows us to do structural repairs. So it's a much thicker product, can be produced in really large formats as well. And then we're working on another technology that essentially takes that biomaterial and combines that with a drug delivery technology. And the idea here is to be able to not only repair tissue, but to ensure that when you repair that tissue, those sites that are either contaminated or infected are treated with antibacterials as that material is implanted and remodeled, because those infections can be devastating in terms of if they become really severe, the whole site can break down. So just in terms of the things the company has achieved over the last, gosh, it's 4 years now, so over the last 4 years, we've actually set up a production facility here in Lower Hutt. So we have a scaled up manufacturing facility that's accredited, so it's ISO 13485 accredited, so it's a medical device accreditation. It's also compliant with the FDA QSR system. And that's able to probably meet our demands for the next sort of 3 years or so. So it's at a reasonably large scale. We've gone through the process of commercialising our first product. We've done a lot of work both on the IP side but also on the technical side, and published a number of studies now showing the difference between our material and materials that are on the market. We've worked towards submitting an implantable application. We have a application with the FDA at the moment being reviewed for that implantable product. We expect that probably to be out by the end of the year. And we're just pretty much at the end of the proof of concept stage for the infection control product. So we'll go into some animal studies very shortly for that, and we hope to have a submission with the FDA middle of next year for that. So in terms of the team, so I'm the CEO there. I trained as a vet, and I've worked in a range of life science companies throughout the world, mainly on the business side, but also in product development as well. Barnaby Mays, our scientific director, has a strong scientific background, was at UCSF in San Francisco, very well published and very well connected in the US. And Nancy Yope is our director of operations. She's an American, vast experience in manufacturing as well. The board, we have an independent chair, Phil McCaw, a major investor in the company through Movax on the board. Greg Sitters, again another investor with Sparkbox. Mark Ahn, he's the CEO of a NASDAQ listed company in the US, and myself are on the board. And we also have a bunch of clinical advisors. Both of these advisors are based in the US and real leaders in the world, or in the international wound care market. So just in terms of the highlights for the company, and we think we have a platform that's highly differentiated from what's out there. We're well positioned to launch our first product this year. It's a platform that we can develop multiple products off, so we see a whole range of different opportunities. And for us, the challenge is selecting those opportunities and sequencing in the right way so that we can build the company in a way that makes sense. But there's some large markets out there that we can see a way to target. And with the new product that we're bringing forward, we can see that brings a whole new level of performance to this market, and we're really excited about what we can do with that. So thanks very much. I hope that gives you a flavour of what we're doing. Thank you.